Story time about how my best friend ditched me for his girlfriend. So a little background information, I was 14 years old and this all happened from 7th to 9th grade. So my best friend Aiden and I met whenever we were in 7th grade. And him and I hit it off almost immediately. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. At first, he was using me for my homework because I was a straight A student. So it definitely was a fake friendship at first. But during the summer before 8th grade, he broke up with his girlfriend. Fast forward, him and I start hanging out more. And we got super close. Then he got back with his girlfriend. And she was the jealous type. She did not like that him and I were friends at all. She was always running to my friend Chelsea asking if Aiden and I would flirt with each other. And of course, every time Chelsea would tell her no. Well, one day him and I are having a deep conversation about how he thought that his girlfriend was going to leave him for her guy best friend. How ironic. Well, I was like, I don't think she would ever do that, blah, blah, blah. But then I asked him, hey, if you and your girlfriend weren't together, would you date me? Like for part 2. Is the statement once a cheater, always a cheater true? For me, no. And before y'all go off, hear me out. I was with my boyfriend for 5 years, and during the first 4 years of our relationship, he cheated on me a lot. Honestly, more times than I probably even found out about. In July, our relationship was at an all-time low. We were arguing so much that I was literally looking up on the internet how to make your relationship work after your partner cheats. As you can probably guess, all the internet told me that I needed to leave him. But we all just know I was not about to do that. Eventually, I found myself on Lemonade, where I found a lot of helpful tips on how to rebuild my trust and my relationship. After this, I told him either things need to change or we're not going to be together anymore. Was I bluffing? Probably. That's besides the point. Fast forward, we stopped going through each other's phones and all that other toxic stuff. Our relationship was doing so good, or so I thought. Fast forward, in December, I go to plug in his phone per usual, but whenever I picked it up, something just didn't feel right. So I unlock it, and there it all is. And if I'm being honest, I was more embarrassed than I was sad, because I have a platform and he was openly commenting on girls' pictures and videos, and I am so thankful that I did not get tagged in a video saying, come get your man, because I would have crashed out. After I confronted him about this, everything changed. If y'all want to hear the rest of the story and you want some relationship tips, make sure to follow me on Lemonade at Kaylie Leas. And once y'all read the whole story, let me know what you guys think down below in the comments and if y'all have a similar experience. Storytime about my psycho boyfriend and backstabbing best friend. So a little background information, I was 17 and in 12th grade, and we're going to call my best friend Sheila. And she had just met this guy who was, quote, the love of her life on this vegan Facebook page. Well, the one day while they're on FaceTime, his best friend Brad saw what I looked like and he wanted my phone number. Fast forward, she gives it to him and I start talking and we hit it off instantly. I definitely thought that he was boyfriend material, because even though we lived like 5 hours away from each other, we would Skype for like 9 hours a day, every day. Fast forward to my birthday, we make things official, and he wanted to see me for my birthday, so he decided to get a hotel room for us. So finally, him and I meet in person, and we end up doing the nasty. And it was terrible, but he was my boyfriend, so Well, after this, he ends up becoming weirdly obsessed with me. He starts saying things like the next time that he comes and sees me, we're gonna get married. After talking to Sheila about it, I decided to break things off with him, because things were moving way too fast, and it freaked me out. After I told him this, he started sobbing. He was like, I wish I would have got you pregnant so that way you couldn't leave me. And I'm in shock because, dude, it has been 3 months. You need to calm down. Like for part 2. Part 2 about how I caught my boyfriend and my best friend sleeping together. So like I said, I kind of felt bad for this prank, so I went over to her house the next day and I knock on the door and she doesn't answer. So I go around to the back door of her house and nobody was answering, so I looked through the window because the cars were there. And that's whenever I see her and my boyfriend doing it. Yup. So obviously I was pissed off and I happened to have my boyfriend's house key, so I went to the Dollar Tree and bought like 50 different nail polishes. And as you could probably guess, I went to his house and put nail polish all over his shit, his clothes, his shoes, everything, even his walls. When I left, I asked John if we could meet and talk, and Wednesday we decided to confront them. And Louise and Vivian said that they had been dating, secretly, behind our backs, way before me and Louise even started dating. There really is no moral to this story, to be honest. It's just that girls need to start following girl code more and not being fake. Story time about how I broke up my best friend and his girlfriend. So it was our sophomore year in high school, and my best friend and I had known each other since we were like 8 years old. And I've always had a crush on him. Like anytime he would get a girlfriend, I would try and break them up. And it would work. Well, our freshman year of high school, he started dating this one girl. Well, when he started dating her, he distanced himself from me because she didn't like how much time we were spending together. So a few months go by and my birthday's coming up. And mind you, within these past few months, we only seen each other like twice. And he had me blocked on all social media. Well, our parents were really good friends because we lived in the same cul-de-sac. So my mom invited him and his parents to my birthday party. So at the end of my party, my friends left and him and his parents stayed. And my parents really didn't care if I drank alcohol, so we had like a whole bottle of vodka to ourselves. So we're in the basement and we're taking shots together. Well, I got him super drunk and he fell asleep. And while he was sleeping, I went on his phone and liked for part 2. Storytime about my experience with karma. So a little background information, I was 17 and in 11th grade. And I'm not gonna lie, I was a mean person. Well, not kind of, I just was mean. Like, I got joy out of annoying and making fun of people. Yeah, I know there was something probably wrong with me, leave me alone. Anyway, so I would low-key always bully my cousin, and when she would get upset about it, I would make it seem as if it was a joke. Well, I guess the one day she had enough of me, because there was this boy that I really liked, and we didn't know each other at all, like we had never spoken one word to each other, and my cousin knew that I liked this boy, so she decided that she was going to email him asking him out. And no, this isn't one of those situations where she tried to steal the guy that I liked. Nope, instead she went on my email and emailed him acting like me. Sis must have been determined to get her lick back because I don't even know how she knew the password to my email. So the next day at school, him and I are in Situationship, and we're all on our laptops for this lesson. Well, all of a sudden, I hear him whisper my name to the popular girl that sits next to him, like for part 2. Get ready with me to go out with my friends. Okay, it's 8:27, and I, need to hurry up because we're supposed to go out at 9, or we're supposed to be there at 9, and I think the place is, 30 minutes away, so we gotta go! I just realized if I'm about to be late, why am I doing a get ready with me? I don't know, I do questionable things all the time, just go with it. And I know it may not look like it because I have the beauty filter on, but my skin is acting up right now, so I'm happy that we're going out at night, and hopefully there are not a lot of lights in there. I did go to my dermatologist a few days ago because I have a bunch of closed comedones on my forehead, so there's so much texture. And I was on retinol for a year and a half last year before I destroyed my skin barrier and had to get off of it for literally 2 months. But she was like, oh, you have rosacea, so we're not going to put you on any retinoids. Which I get it, people with rosacea have super sensitive skin. But girly, I was on it for a year and a half and I know how my skin works. So I may or may not have went to a different dermatologist and got prescribed tretinoin. Okay, and since I'm just going out to the bar, this is the fit for tonight. I don't really like the shirt, but I don't have it. Storytime about why I hate family vacations. So a little background information. My family vacations at the same villa every year. And since I finally turned 16, I was allowed to bring my best friend, Mia. And I had just broken up with my super controlling boyfriend, Liam. So this vacation was about to be lit. So of course, the night before, we're on FaceTime. We're planning out all these vacation activities that we're going to do. Fast forward, we drive to the villa. After we were done unpacking, we went to the pool. And that's where we met this guy, Hunter. He was super cute. He was also vacationing with his family. So him and I started talking and we ended up hanging out a lot throughout the next few days. And then the one day I didn't hear from him or see him at all. And I forgot how crazy my mom gets on these trips. But me and we hear strange noises coming from outside, so we go to see what it is. I just realized that if Mia and I were in a scary movie, we would be the first ones to be unalive because we literally just went outside. Anyways, we see Hunter and my mom. And let's just say my family has storytime about how my boyfriend took me back after I cheated. So a little background information, I was 16 and in 11th grade, and my boyfriend Jacob and I had just gotten back together. We'd been together for a year, but we were having some issues, so we broke up for a little bit. Well, only after a week of him and I being back together, I cheated on him. I started texting this guy, and I ended up sending nudes to him, and he sent them to my boyfriend, of course. Yeah, I know, that's what I get for cheating. I'm a terrible person, blah, 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 get over it. Well, when my boyfriend confronted me about it, I told him the truth about it, and he broke up with me. And I regretted it so much. A month later, I decided to reach out to him. I was like, hey, that was the worst mistake I've ever made, and I want to try again. Thankfully for me, he took me back. But the first few months of us being back together were miserable. People were starting rumors that I was cheating on him again. It was literal hell. Moral of the story, if you want to get with somebody else, just break up with your partner. So if you want to get back with them, things are a little bit salvageable. Storytime, my sister and I live in the same house, but we haven't spoken to each other in 2 years. So a little background information, I was 17 years old and a junior in high school, and my sister was only a year younger than me, so she was 16 and a sophomore in high school. My sister struggled a lot in school with making friends because she wasn't very likable. She had a really bad attitude, she would bully people all the time about their appearances. So naturally, this made her quite a few enemies. And I just so happened to be really good friends with the older siblings of the kids that she would bully. And they were always coming to me saying, hey, get a hold of your sister before we do. And whenever I would warn her about this, she would literally say that she didn't care and she wishes somebody would confront her about it. Now, my sister did have a group of friends who all were notorious for loving fighting and bullying others as well. So in my head, I was like, okay, at least she has them to back her up. However, things took a turn for the worse whenever she took some inappropriate photos of a girl changing in the locker room and shared them around the whole school. This girl was a freshman, and she just so happened to be a sibling of one of the girls in my sister's group. She also had another sister who was a Part 2 about how my best friend ditched me for his girlfriend. So like I said, him and I are having a deep conversation, and I all of a sudden ask him, hey, if you weren't dating your girlfriend, would you date me? And he says yes. But nothing came of it. So fast forward, the pandemic hits, and I had never saw him again because he transferred to a different high school. We still talked every day, but then he just stopped answering the phone, and I asked my best friend why he stopped talking to me, and she told him it was because his girlfriend got jealous and she asked him to stop speaking to me, even though she literally had no reason to dislike me. But since he's a good boyfriend, he told her that he would stop texting me, and he did, without giving me a reason, which sucked even more. But I guess that makes him an even better boyfriend because he didn't tell me, oh yeah, my girlfriend's jealous of you, sorry. But still, I was pissed. Anyway, so I accepted it at that point until one day I was texting with Chelsea and she sends me a picture of Aiden and his girlfriend. And he looked really happy with her, but I realized that I still had feelings for him and I have no idea what to do. Is it too late or no? Storytime about how my whole class found my teacher's OF. So a little background information. I was 16 and in 10th grade, and my best friend Maya and I were walking in the hallway getting ready for first period. Now, even this early in the morning, the rumor was already going around that Miss J had an OF. Fast forward, Maya and I get to first period. 10 minutes after class started, Miss J put a problem up on the board. After she gave us a little bit of time, she was like, okay, who can solve this? And as she's about to call on someone, there was this guy, Jake, in my class, who was passing notes to this one girl, Jessica. And if you're wondering why they were passing notes, it's because we were not allowed to have phones in this class, of course. Anyway, so then Miss J is like, can you read that to the class, blah, 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 blah. And the note literally said, did you hear about Miss J's OF? She finished teaching the rest of our class, but we didn't see her for like 3 days after that. And I guess she wasn't fired because she had an OF. It was because there were students subscribed to it. And she knew about those students that were subscribed to it, and she didn't do anything about it. Part 2 about how I got caught flirting with my 20-year-old neighbor. So like I said, he was over at my house, and then we were talking about how we should go to his, and then my dad was listening in the hallway secretly. And then he comes out and he's like, so where are you guys going without telling anybody? And my neighbor had walked out the front door, and I was like, oh, I'm not going anywhere, I'm just locking the door behind him. And then my dad goes out after him. And then after hearing them talk outside, my dad came in and slammed the front door closed. And then my dad storms into my room and he's like, you know, I heard you flirting with him, right? Of course, my stupid ass making it worse. I tried to convince him that we knew he was there the whole time and we were just doing a prank on him. It didn't work. And I ended up getting grounded for 2 months and having to get a summer job to pay for bills and any trips that I had planned for the summer. Get ready with me to go look at a new apartment. Okay, so I'm super excited because it's finally time for me to move out of my apartment. And don't get me wrong, I love the apartment that I've lived in. I've lived in it now for almost 2 years. But this is where I lived with my ex, and I just feel like I need a new start. Because, like, I'm not gonna lie, walking around here, I just have so many memories of him and I here. You know, really good ones, and then also the bad ones. And I'm not gonna lie, this apartment is kind of big, so it just feels even more lonely being here by myself. So I feel like if I just have, like, a smaller space, I'll also feel more fulfilled, if that makes sense. I've been using the NARS Radiant Creamy Concealer for the past like 3 years, but I decided to try out Charlotte Tilbury's Radiant Concealer because my skin has been super dry and sensitive lately, and I think they said this has hyaluronic acid in it, but let me know what you guys think. I think I really like it, and I think it's a way better shade match for me. Okay, so I am running late per usual, but this is the fit. I'm wearing some heels, my Gucci glasses, and this shirt from Aritzia, and these Levi jeans. Part 2 about how my friends made everyone hate me. So like I said, Ben comes up behind me, give me a hug and a kiss, and I say, ooh, push him off of me, and then Charlene laughs it off like everything's fine. But then the next day at school, people are telling me about how she was telling everybody that I would force him to kiss me and hang out with me. And of course, everybody believed her, and no one believed me. Which I'm not gonna lie, I feel like in high school, whenever there's a rumor starting, unless you tell your side of the story first, no one's gonna believe you. Well, thankfully, he ended up explaining the whole situation to everybody. So once those rumors were laid to rest, she started new rumors that she was gonna fight me after school. And I was tired of putting up with the shit, so I ended up beating her ass, and now I'm a senior in high school. And thankfully have found amazing supportive friends. As for Charlene, I haven't heard anything about her since, and I would like to keep it that way. Because why would you let a boy get in the middle of our friendship? Storytime about how my best friend and boyfriend slept with each other. So a little background information, I was 16 and in 10th grade. So this whole thing started 2 years ago whenever my crush asked me on a date, and then blah blah blah, we became official. And I decided to introduce him to my best friend Vivian. And we're gonna call my boyfriend Louise. So one day we're all in my room watching a movie, and I went to go and grab some snacks, but I left the door open because I wanted to see what was happening in the movie. And while I'm in the kitchen, I see Louise staring at Vivian. Like, I was low-key weirded out, because why are you doing that? Anyway, so then I went into the room and I felt this like weird tension between them. So I stopped inviting my best friend to come over whenever we would hang out. And she got super mad at me for this. And Vivi and I would always like pull pranks on each other. So the one day I call up her boyfriend John and I'm like, oh, we should say that we like each other. So we did, and she didn't care. Which maybe she just didn't think the prank was funny, but it was sus. So the next day I stop over at Vivian's house and she doesn't answer. Like for part 2. Story time about how my best friend was stealing from me. A little background information. I was 17 or 18 whenever this all happened, and I was a senior in high school. Now, my family and I had just moved to a new state, and that is where I met my best friend, who we are going to call Grace. Now, Grace and I clicked instantly, but anytime that we would hang out, she would always want to come to my house and never wanted to go to hers. Her excuse was that she had a lot of siblings and her house was super small, there was nothing to do, you know, which I didn't really care. I had no problem with this at all, until some weird shit started happening in my house. And when I say weird shit, I mean that stuff in my house literally started disappearing. Now, at first I wasn't that suspicious because it was just my clothes. And y'all know how things get lost in the laundry sometimes. But then it started to become stuff like my shoes and purses. So, you know, I go and I ask my mom if she's seen any of my clothes or shoes or purses. And she goes and looks through her things to see if anything might be mixed in. But while she's doing that, she's realizing that some of her shit is missing too. So at first we're thinking that it's the cleaning lady, which I feel super bad about. But, you know, before we blame anybody else that, you know, we love and trust and we think would never steal from us, we would think that it would be more logical for somebody who doesn't really know us to steal from us. So we confront her and she denies everything, but just to be sure, we did something to test her and she did not steal our shit. But after this, we're getting a little bit worried that other stuff in the house might be missing, so we go and look and our jewelry is missing as well. So now we only had 2 suspects. First we had my cousin because she would stay over sometimes, and then we had Grace, which I thought was very unlikely because she was always with me. But nonetheless, I started to be more cautious around her. I would try to be more aware of where and what she was doing while she was in my house. And for a few days, nothing happened. So obviously, after a few times of her coming over, I was 99.9% sure that she wasn't stealing from us. But then, of course, the one night, she must have not realized that I was still awake because she got up to, I'm assuming, go to the bathroom. So I keep pretending to be asleep. And when she walked out of my room, I saw her walk towards the living room. And I decided not to go out there. Instead, I was going to wait until she came back with shit because that would be super awkward if I just went out there and she really could have just been getting some water or something. Well, what do you know? She comes back with some of our shit and she stuffs it in her book bag. So I decided not to confront her. I actually wait till the next day to just tell my mom about it. And that's when she told me that I just wasn't allowed to speak to Grace again or see her. But I wanted my shit back, so I go to her house to surprise her. Her sister ends up answering the door and she lets me in. So, you know, she brings me into the living room and I'm sitting on the couch, and whenever Grace comes into the living room, y'all should have saw her. It looked like she's seen a fucking ghost. And then she goes, "Why are you here?" Like, girl, you're not even gonna pretend to be happy to see me after you just stole all my shit? After you just robbed me? How rude of you. No, but I actually told her that I was there to finish a project with her, so she was like, okay, we can do it in the living room. And then I tell her that I need to go to the bathroom, and I go back. I find her room. As soon as I walk in, I see my shit. So I pull my phone out and I record everything. And she walks in her room. I don't even care. I'm literally still recording everything. Like, she's crying and saying, "Oh my goodness, like, you know, my mom made me steal this stuff because we're low-key down bad right now and we need money, da-da-da-da-da, and she knew y'all were rich." Like, babe, do me a favor. Save the sob story for someone who cares. And okay, just for shits and giggles, let's say that you are struggling. If you're struggling that bad, you would have been sold my shit, because why is everything still in your room? So, you know, I threatened to call the cops on her unless she gives all my shit back, and she didn't want that, so obviously she gave it all back. Well, I did find out a few days later that she was, in fact, trying to sell my stuff, but I don't care. You should have just came to me instead of fucking somebody over who actually cared about you. Story time about how my best friend got over. So a little background information, we were in 9th grade and we were 15 whenever this all happened. We're gonna call my best friend Ethan. Well, Ethan was dating this girl, Brianna, and they broke up after like 7 months of dating, which if we're being completely honest, it was for the best. They were toxic as obviously. What does Ethan do after this happens? He comes to his best friends for advice because obviously he still loved Brianna. Anyways, so he comes to me and our other best friend, Matthew, and he's like, yeah, like what should I do? Still love her, still want to be with her, but our relationship was so toxic, da 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 da. And Matt and I were like, no, you do not need her in your life. I don't know about y'all, but sometimes I just wish my friends would let me be delusional. Do not sit there and tell me that him and I are the most toxic people on earth when we're together. Tell me that him and I are an amazing couple and we're going to be together. Like, I will literally tell my friend when I want her to let me be delusional. I don't know if it's just me. Anyways, we were not about to let Ethan be delusional. We did not want him near this bitch. I had good intentions. I didn't want Ethan to be with her because of how toxic they were. Matt, on the other hand, anyway, so like I said, we're hyping Ethan up and he's like, yeah, you know what? That I don't care if she gets another boyfriend. I don't need her. Well, Ethan, you really shouldn't have said that in front of Matt. Especially the I don't care if she gets another boyfriend part. Anyway, so fast forward, Matt ends up getting with Ethan's ex-girlfriend. Obviously, this is going to make Ethan upset. Personally, in my opinion, Brianna was not a nice person. She was one of those girls that was very fake and thought that she was above everybody else. So Ethan goes and talks to Matt and he's like, hey, what the happened to, oh, you don't need that, she's toxic, da 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 da, she's this, that, and the next. And I'm just like on the sidelines watching this unfold because I just wasn't getting involved. Anyways, so Matt is like, well, you said that you didn't care if she got another boyfriend. When he said that, that did not go over well with Ethan at all. He was not about to have him use that as an excuse to over. So then Ethan goes, you know, you're my best friend, I trusted you, da 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 da. And then Matt, guess what he does? He just shrugs and he's like, well, I don't know what you want me to do. Anyway, so this led to Ethan and Matt physically fighting.
I ain't gonna lie, he was mad as a motherfucker.
Matt ended up with a broken nose and Brianna ended up dumping him. So, you know, he really just like got beat up for no reason. But that's what you get for being a snake. Karma's a bitch. Get ready with me while I tell y'all about how me telling my crush that I had feelings for him completely backfired. So I've been stuck in a situationship for the past 6 months. We would go on dates like 3 or 4 times a week. But I'm not gonna lie, after 5 months, I'm like, come on, like, let's make things official. Fast forward, my New Year's resolution for 2024 was to stop being a chicken shit and be more outgoing. I saw everybody doing the 100 bucket list challenge on Lemonade, and I figured if anything got me out of my shell, it would be this. And up until like 3 days ago, things were going great. Like, I had already gotten 13 of the things done. Well then, I asked Siri to pick a number 1 through 100, and she decides to choose number 28, which just so happened to be confess to your crush. But then I thought to myself, you know what, this could actually be a good thing, because I'm not built for the situationship life. So that was the night that I decided I was going to tell my man who isn't actually my man that it's time to make things official or kick rocks. As we're driving back to my place so he can drop me off, I just decided to rip off the band-aid. I was like, listen, either we need to make things official or we're never seeing each other again. So then he goes, okay, just give me time to take care of a few things first. And I told him no. So then he goes, okay, fine, will you be my girlfriend? And I'm like, yeah, duh. So around 2 a.m. that night, I get woken up to my phone being blown up from an unknown number telling me that I'm a horrible person, that I ruined their family. I had no idea this man had a wife and kids. Anyways, after that, I cut him off, but I'm still getting phone calls from random numbers, which I thought it was him, but it's not. It's actually his wife. Thankfully, I dodged a bullet. If you want to see me complete the rest of this list, definitely join me on Lemonade's 100 Bucket List Challenge. Don't forget to follow me at Kaylie Leas, and hopefully the next challenge is not a fail. Part 2 of how my husband accidentally told me that he was cheating on me. So like I said, my dad lived 5 minutes away, so he just rushed over to my house. And we tried a few more things to get it off. We tried Windex, we tried the dental floss, none of it was working. So my dad told me that we were gonna have to cut it off with pliers. So he comes over with the pliers, cuts the ring off. Well, a few days later, I had taken it to the same place that we got it to get the band fixed. Or replaced. While I was there, I decided to get it appraised, just for insurance reasons. So a few days later, I go and pick up my ring, and when I get home, I look at the appraisal. It was not the same one that I had picked out in the store. It looked exactly like it, but there was like a $20,000 price difference. So right now, I'm like, what the fuck? I'm not mad about the money part. I'm more mad that my husband lied to me. I was more upset about the fact that he had lied to me. So I had made dinner reservations for the next night so that way I could hopefully bring up the conversation about it, like for part 3. Storytime about how my best friend punched me in the face just to impress a group of boys. A little background information. My best friend did not have a lot of experience with boys. Once she did start talking to boys, this girl did a personality switch as soon as a boy walked into a room. She would usually just act a little bit more of like a pick-me, but never like make fun of me in front of the boys. Well, the one night her and I, we went to this party. Her and I liked the same guy, which is always a recipe for disaster. But to make sure that there were no issues, we both decided that whoever he liked would get him. Majority of the night, he ends up talking to me. And I didn't really think that there was a problem because she seemed like she was fine with it. Until a little bit later, I hear her screaming, "I want to fight someone." She's like, "Brad, do you know that she can't fight?" He's like, "Oh, you can't fight?" And he goes, "I think you two should fight right now." So then I'm like, "I'm not doing this." And she goes, "No, I think Brad's right. I think we should fight." So then I'm like, "Okay, well, you can have fun fighting somebody else because I'm leaving." She runs outside, grabs me by my hair, and punches me in the face. And just literally actually just beats the shit out of me. I did end up pressing charges on her, but moral of the story, don't be best friends with girls who don't know how to act around men. Storytime about how I got in trouble for flirting with my 20-year-old neighbor. So a little background information, I was 15 and in 9th grade. And the one day I was walking my dogs with my friend whenever I saw one of my neighbors outside. And of course, because I told her that I thought he was cute, she started making a huge scene, yelling at the top of her lungs, telling me to go up to him. So I end up going up to him, and fast forward a week or two, we were talking and hanging out. And I never thought to ask his age, but he knew how old I was. And my mom and dad got to know him since he came around pretty often. Like, he would come over for movie night, and on one couch, it would be me, him, and my sisters, under a huge blanket, and then on the other couch would be my parents. Well, the one night we were watching a movie, and there were some things going on under the blanket. Fast forward, he comes over to my house the next day, and my parents were taking a nap, and both of my sisters were at school, and him and I were in the living room flirting with each other, and I didn't know that my dad was in the hallway listening. And we were talking about me going over to his house, and then my dad steps out of the hallway, and he's like, "Where are you going without telling anybody?" Like for part 2. Part 3, my sister and I live in the same house, but we haven't spoken to each other in 2 years. So like I said, everyone except for my sister got suspended, which I don't even know how that happened. But fast forward, after my suspension, I returned to school and everything was normal until I went to the library during lunch. When I got there, those same girls that got suspended plus 5 more girls were all staring at me while I was walking over to my table to go study and eat. And then I see this one girl that is known for fighting, so she has to have a security guard with her at all times. Like, this guy literally had her on a leash 24/7. So when I didn't see him with her, that's when I knew it was time for me to get up and go. So I grab all my things and I go to walk out of the library. And then all of a sudden, I feel someone yank my hair and it was over for me. All those girls ended up getting suspended again, and I ended up getting suspended for that picture because my sister went around and told everyone in school that it was me who took the picture and I was the one bullying that girl online through fake accounts. And my sister told everybody that I was going to be in the library during lunch that day. Her and I still live at our parents' house, but we do not speak to each other at all. Part 2 about my psycho ex and my backstabbing best friend. So like I said, Sheila convinced me to break up with him, and I did. Fast forward, Sheila becomes super distant with me, and she's posting stuff on her Facebook like, "Oh, when your new boo gives you his hoodie." And her man had broke up, so I texted her asking who it was about, because I'm her best friend, duh. Finally, a few days later, after she was done avoiding me, she decides to answer with, "We need to talk. I slept with Brad, and now him and I are in love with each other." And I'm like, what the hell happened to girl code? Like, yeah, I didn't want him, but at the same time, you're a snake. Like, ew. Anyway, so then she starts saying things like he's the best boyfriend and the reason why I'm single is because I wasn't appreciative of him. I ended up messaging her ex and telling him what happened, and to get our get back, we slept together. Fast forward a month goes by, and then I get a text from Sheila and Brad on the same day saying that they broke up because both of them cheated on each other. And it was quite comical because Brad's like, "Yeah, you were the best girlfriend I ever had," and then Sheila's like, "Yeah, you were my best friend. I don't know why I would do that to you." I told both of them to F off, and then I told her ex what happened. So him and I laugh about it, and then 2 days later, I get a text from him saying that him and Sheila are getting married. Yeah. Part 2 about my experience with karma. So like I said, I heard him whisper my name to the popular girl that sits next to him, and she has never liked me. I never bullied her. I know I said I was a mean person, but I didn't bully her. She just hated me. So of course she thinks it would be funny to confront me in front of the whole class, and she's like, "Why would you email him asking him out?" Not only was I embarrassed, but I was shocked because I was like, what are you talking about? Honestly, I thought that they were lying, so I was like, whatever, I'll check when I get home. Well, when I went home that day and checked my email, what do you know? There it is. An email sent from my laptop saying, "Hey, I really like you. Do you want to go out with me?" I forget how, but I found out that it was my cousin. I didn't do anything to her because the damage was already done at that point, but I got bullied so bad for the rest of that week. And I don't even know why. Everybody was being so extra about it. It's not like this kid had a girlfriend or anything, but people were whispering rude things to me in class. And the one day that week while I was in the locker room, that popular girl starts yelling that I have blood on my pants. Like, she screamed it so loud, everybody heard it. And I tried asking my cousin if there was anything. She was ignoring me. So now on top of the whole email situation, I was dealing with that. Obviously, eventually everything died down, but I definitely learned my lesson and I'm no longer a bully. Okay, y'all, today I want to do the cold girl makeup look. Like, I like the icy look, but I also want to mix it with like this glossy look. It looks so pretty. I have a love-hate relationship with blush because I have rosacea, so I hate putting blush on, but this whole look is literally about the blush and looking like you're cold, like you just blew your nose a million times, so your nose is all red because it's irritated. So we're just gonna do eeny, meeny, miny, mo because I don't know what blush is gonna look like what on my skin. Eeny, meeny, miny, mo. Okay, we're gonna put this one. Oh my god. Look at that, it's already blending in with my rosacea. Okay, this is turning out more like sunburn. I really feel like this is a trust the process situation, but I feel like I f***ed the process. Okay, and now we're just gonna highlight where I usually would, so like right here. I think a big part of this look is having like at least pinky tinted lips. I'm not gonna lie, this looks like shit, so we're gonna go back to the other lipstick. Okay, this is the finished final look. Let me know what you guys think down below in the comments. Rate it 1 through 10. Story time about how my friends made everyone hate me. So a little background information, I was 15 and in 9th grade. And we're going to call my best friend Charlene. Her and I were best friends from 6th grade all the way up till freshman year. Well, when we got into high school, she caught feelings for this sophomore who we're going to call Ben. And when I say she caught feelings for this boy, she was like in love with him. Personally, I didn't like anybody. I just got out of a toxic relationship. So boys were like the last thing on my mind. Well, instead of Ben trying to pursue things with her, he would always try to flirt with me instead. And I would never go along with it because duh, girl code. Well, instead of talking to Ben about this, she would run to all of her other friends and call me a slut. For me, quote, letting him flirt with me. Like, girl, I can't control him. The most I can tell him to do is stop. Anyway, so the one day we were waiting for the bus to go home, and all of a sudden Ben comes up behind me and gives me a hug and a kiss. On the cheek, of course, but still. So I push him off of me because ew. Well, Charlene laughs it off like everything's fine. Like for part 2, my sister and I live in the same house, but we haven't spoken to each other in 2 years. So like I said, my sister took some pictures of this girl in the locker room and sent them around the whole school. And this girl's older sister was a part of my sister's friend group. I didn't know about this until rumors reached me that my sister was going to be jumped after school. So instead of going straight to my boyfriend's house after school that day, I drove her home instead. The next day, my best friend texted me in the morning saying, hey, you might want to walk around with your sister because they're going to try to get her in the locker room. So my best friend and I took turns all day watching after my sister. And sure enough, whenever we went into the locker room with her, there were 7 girls waiting to fight her. Here's the thing, I'm not a fighter. Fighting isn't fair to begin with, so I picked up this metal scooter next to me, and I just start swinging it at them. Thankfully, security guards and teachers intervened before anything terrible happened. They looked at my sister as the victim, so all of us ended up getting suspended except for her. Fast forward after my suspension, I go back to school. Everything was normal until I went to the library during lunch. All of the girls who got suspended plus 5 more girls were all staring at me. Like for part 3. Story time about how this boy stabbed me with a pencil in kindergarten. So a little background information, I was 6 years old and in kindergarten, obviously. I'm not gonna lie, this story kind of shows that it doesn't matter how old a child is, they can literally still be very mean and yeah. Well, during the middle of the school year, there was this new kid who came to our class and his name was Freddie. Now, Freddie coming in the middle of the year was kind of sad because everybody already had their friends. They didn't really want to talk to the new kid. And what made it even worse was the fact that he was a teacher's pet. And he was the teacher's favorite. So he was always picked to go up to the board and be the line leader, which made the kids hate him even more. For example, during lunch, Freddie would go and try to sit with some of the kids, and they would call the teacher over, say that he was doing something that was annoying them or really gross. And the teachers would remove him and put him at a table alone by himself. And I was one of the kids that didn't really make fun of him. I just kind of sat back and laughed, which I know is terrible. But like for part 2. Part 2 about this boy who stabbed me with a pencil in kindergarten. So like I said, everybody would pretty much bully him, and I was one of the kids that just sat back and laughed, didn't say anything to him directly. Eventually, we were getting in trouble for discluding him. We would all have to stay inside during recess with our heads down on the desk in the dark. Then everybody act like they were going to include him. Like the one time they were like, okay, we're playing hide and seek, you go hide. And then they never went to find him. So then this kid actually started getting violent. My guess is because the teachers and principal were not doing anything about it. When everybody was walking, he would purposely trip kids. This one time, this girl brought in pencils for the whole class, and she didn't give him one. So he said that he felt sick the one day, and all the kids went out to recess. And he went around and broke every single pencil. And I came in and I found it, so I told the teacher. And then during nap time, he put his mat by me. And when I finally fall asleep, he literally comes over and stabs me in the back of the neck with a pencil. Story time about why I hate Valentine's Day. So a little background information. I was 22 years old and I had been dating this guy for almost a year. And we're going to call him Jimmy. Most of Jimmy and I's relationship had been long distance. Because literally after 2 months of us dating, he was offered a job in a different state. And I never worried about him cheating on me or anything like that because he seemed like a really honest and genuine guy. But of course I was wrong because he said that he couldn't do anything for Valentine's Day because he had to work. So I'm sitting there and I'm like, oh, well, I'm just going to fly to him, so we can spend Valentine's Day together. And it'll be a nice surprise. So a few days before Valentine's Day, I get my plane ticket and I wanted to do something special. So I wore some nice lingerie under a trench coat. Well, fast forward, my plane lands and I get an Uber to his apartment. And when I knock on his door, I hear a woman's voice from inside saying, don't worry, I'll get the door. Like for part 2. Part 2 about why I hate Valentine's Day. So like I said, I Uber to his apartment and I knock on the door and I hear some woman from inside say, don't worry, babe, I'll get it. So I hurry up and try to tie my coat because I had untied it thinking that my boyfriend was going to open the door. But no, why would my boyfriend open his own door to his own apartment that he lives alone in? So she opens the door and she's like, hi, what can I help you with? And I'm like, oh, is this apartment blah, blah, blah? And she's like, yeah. I'm like, oh, well, is Jimmy here? And she was like, yeah. So she calls Jimmy over to the door. I look directly at him and I'm like, oh, is this like your friend or something? And she's like, excuse me, I'm his fiance. So I'm looking at him all confused and I start screaming that he's a liar, a cheater. He's like, babe, go call the police. I have no idea who this woman is. She sounds crazy. So his fiance walks away and he goes, I'm sorry, I'll call you later. And then security escorts me off the property. Needless to say, I never talked to him ever again. Story time about how my cat got me grounded. And yes, I mean my literal pet cat got me grounded. So a little background information. I was 16 and I was a freshman in high school. And my parents were extremely strict. Now, of course, there was the usual no hanging out with boys, no hanging out with anybody on the weekdays. Well, my parents took it a step further. Actually, no, they took it like 10 miles further. I got my phone taken every night at 6 o'clock. Even on the weekends, and my friends were only allowed to come over for 8 hours exactly on the weekends. And they had to have a ride to and from my house. Well, usually my friend group and I were never invited to any kind of parties. But this one girl who had just moved to our school, she was throwing a huge party and she invited everybody, not just the popular kids. So obviously my friends begged me to go. They were like, please, we can sneak over there. Your parents go to bed early anyways. Like for part 2. Part 2 about how my cat got me grounded, and yes, I am talking about my pet cat. So like I said, my best friends are begging me to come out of the house. They're like, listen, do whatever you have to come to this party. This is the first and probably only party that we will ever be invited to in our entire lives. So at this point, I start planning to sneak out of my house. So my parents usually go to sleep at around 9:30, 10 o'clock at night, and they usually wake up at 5:30 in the morning. But since this party was on a Friday, obviously my parents aren't going to wake up at that time. They'll usually wake up around maybe 9, 10 o'clock in the morning. So this gave me a perfect amount of time to do what I needed to do, come back and not get caught. But just in case, I made sure to turn off any alarms on their phone. But I also had to make sure that I had a foolproof plan to get out of the house and get back in. Now, of course, I couldn't go through any of the doors in the house because of the stupid Ring doorbell. But there was one thing that did work in my favor. So my dad had been slowly but surely installing the window security alarms, but he hadn't made it to my room yet, so I was good to sneak out of my window. And thankfully, my window was on the first floor. Like for part 3. Part 3 about how my cat got me grounded, and yes, I am talking about my pet cat. So like I said, I had a foolproof plan to escape, okay? I was going to get out the window and I was going to just crawl back in and act like nothing ever happened. But there was an issue with this, okay? My dad was supposed to fix my window because I somehow broke it. I don't even know how. But anytime that I go to put my window up, it just literally falls. And not only does it fall, it locks when it falls. And obviously you can guess what will happen if it does fall. I won't be able to get back in the house and I will somehow have to get in the house without my parents knowing, which is literally impossible. So I will be grounded for the rest of my life. So I was going to put a book between the window and the windowsill, but I didn't want it falling and making a lot of noise. So I decided to put a pillow there. So I snuck out of my house at 11 o'clock and I had the best time of my life. Probably because that's the first and only time that I will ever be invited to any party. But fast forward, I go and I run to the side of the house to get into my window. And of course the pillow is missing. And I'm looking around to see where the pillow went in my room. And of course my cat is laying on it on the floor. So I tried messing with the window and then all of a sudden my parents walked in my room and saw me. Story time about why I will never go on a date ever again. So a little background information. I was 20 years old and I had just gotten out of a long-term relationship. Now, I had just gotten out of this relationship like a month before I went on this date. And I had absolutely no intentions of looking for a guy, but I was up for, flirting with them and going on some dates. Well, the one day I am at the gym in my apartment building. And there's this guy who's walking on the treadmill next to me, and I get off, and he gets off at the same time, and he starts up a conversation with me, and we had started talking about how I never went jet skiing. And he was like, oh, well, do you want to go jet skiing on Tuesday? So I just decided to put myself out there. I said yes, and bam, we had a date the next day. So I meet him at his car, and we go on this date. He did end up paying, which was very nice. But anyways, we're on the jet ski and we're in the middle of the water. I was kind of weirded out because I didn't think that we would have to be that close with each other. Like for part 2. Part 2 about why I will never go on a date ever again. So like I said, he takes us to the beach, we get on the jet ski, and it's just 2 of us on one jet ski, which I was low-key uncomfortable about because I thought that we were each going to get our own, so there would be no touching involved. And after the shit that he pulled, I definitely wish that I had my own jet ski. So apparently he's jet skied all of his life, he knew how to do this. Well, we go pretty far out from land because he knew the people and he didn't have to listen to any of the rules. He offered to let me drive it, but I did not want to because of the fact that he was going super fast and I did not want to do that shit. Well, listen to this. He flips us off the jet ski, right? And when he does that, all of a sudden it hits me. I am in the middle of the ocean. Like there's sharks, there's other things, there's creepy things, mysterious things we don't even know about. I literally start crying and he thinks it's funny. He gets on the jet ski and literally drives away. I'm not even joking, he left me there for 3 minutes. I could barely see land. And then he ended up coming back and he was like, ha ha ha, da da da. I never saw. Story time about how my ex-boyfriend stole all my shit and then gave it to his new girlfriend. So a little background information, I was 23 and I had been dating this guy who we're gonna call Derek for 2 years. Now, at first I thought that our relationship was perfect. Of course, you guys know how it goes. But then the one day he came home from work and he told me that he had been cheating on me throughout our whole relationship. He literally had a full-on relationship the past 2 years that him and I were supposed to be together with another girl. But yeah, he came home from work and he told me, listen, I don't want to be with you. I really love her. It's just not working out. So obviously I go and I find her social media and I tell her and she just blocks me. She literally just blocks me. And then he told me that she knew that he was also dating me at the same time. So whatever, fast forward, he moves out, he moves in with her, and he is slowly moving his stuff out of my apartment. Like, it literally took him 4 months to get all of his stuff out of my apartment. Anyway, so the one day he calls me while I'm at work, and he's like, hey, can I come get the keys? I need to get some of my stuff. So obviously this had been going on the past 4 months, so I was like, yeah, just come pick the keys up. So he does, like for part 2. Story time about how this girl and her boyfriend beat me up. So a little background information, I was in 11th grade and I was 17 years old. And in the summer, my friend and I went to go and watch fireworks for the 4th of July at this park. And most of the people there went to a completely different school. But we ended up meeting this group of guys and I was really vibing with the one guy who was there. He was super cute, super chill, and we got along great. And I just want to put this out there, I did not think to ask that he had a girlfriend because he was being super flirtatious and just really wasn't acting like he had a girlfriend. I literally just hate how we have to ask people if they're in relationships now because they don't want to be honest or loyal. And then we would look like the bad guys because they were dishonest. Anyway, so him and I start to hang out a lot and he really likes me. I really like him. And we went to this football game at his school and we ended up doing the nasty. After that, I'm in the bleachers with my friends and one of my friends tells me, yeah, he has a girlfriend. So she couldn't have told me this before we did the nasty. Anyways, like for part 2. Part 2 about how this guy and his girlfriend literally beat me up. So like I said, him and I did the nasty at the football game, and then I go onto the bleachers with my friends and she tells me that he has a girlfriend. But I'm not gonna lie, at this point we had already been talking for 2 months and I really didn't care because I liked him and I wasn't just gonna turn my feelings off. First of all, I do not owe that girl any loyalty. Number 2, we were already intimate with each other, so I don't know what could make this situation worse than it already was. I mean, I did confront him about it and he told me that he was gonna break up with her for me. So I believed him. I was like, whatever, I'm just gonna wait for him to break it off with her and I'm still gonna talk to him. So eventually he literally made me wait for like 2 more months. So what did I do? I told his girlfriend everything. I'm not gonna lie, it's not even that I wanted to be a good person. It was literally just to spite him. It's like, yeah, your man wants to be with me. He don't want you. This is the text messages of him telling me that he was gonna break up with you. That day he called me and he was like, hey, do you wanna hang out? And I was shook that he did not bring up anything that I said to his girlfriend. Like for part 3. Part 3 about how this girl and her boyfriend literally beat me up. So like I said, I told his girlfriend everything about how he didn't want her. I sent her the receipts and everything. And then she has the audacity to tell me I'm disgusting, I'm this, I'm that, saying that I'm gross for even doing anything with him. I should have known that he had a girlfriend. I should have told him off. Like, sis, your man did not mention you once. He didn't even mention you as an ex-girlfriend, so put the blame on him, not me. So later that day, he invites me over, and I am shook because I at least thought that he was going to bring it up and be like, why did you text my girlfriend? So I thought that maybe she was one of those girls where she's like, OMG, my man is never wrong. I'm not even going to confront him because I don't want him to break up with me, and it just wasn't his fault. So fast forward, I get to his house. I usually just walk in because I've been over there so many times. Well, as soon as I walk in the door, him and his girlfriend start wailing on me. I ended up with a few broken ribs, but I also ended up pregnant with his child. His family thinks that he should be with me since I'm having his kid. She decided to stay with him, so she comes to every prenatal appointment. Story time about how my best friend made my whole school hate me. So a little background information, I was 13 and in 8th grade, and so was my best friend, who we are going to call Layla. And we met at a birthday party of a mutual friend during that summer. And all 3 of us started to hang out every day. And then when school started back up, the trio fell apart. Because our other friend Alice went to a different school, so she couldn't really hang out with us as much. When we first started school, there was this boy that I met and I really liked him and we started dating. But Layla and I had our own little friend group. There were 5 of us. Then there was this girl named Ivy. She had 4 people in her group, and our friend groups did not like each other at all. There was maybe one person from both groups that hung out with the other group, but that was it. And the only reason why none of us were friends was because the main girls, like the leaders of the group, used to be best friends. But then Ivy went behind Layla's back and started talking to this boy that Layla liked, and that's literally why they're not friends anymore. Well, all of us in the friend group were friends, but I was Layla's best friend. Like for part 2. Part 3 about how my best friend made my entire school hate me. So like I said, Ivy sent the pictures and everybody saw them. And I'm talking even the people in high school. The next day, Ivy and Layla are in the same science class together. And none of their friends were there that day, so they ended up working on a group assignment together. And just like that, they were best friends again. Well, I get thrown under the bus. The teachers come and pull me out of my class and they search my phone and they find the Instagram account on my phone. Then when I told them it was also on Layla's phone, they went on her phone and they didn't find anything, of course. I get suspended and Layla and Ivy tell everybody that I was the one who made the fake Snapchat account and the Instagram accounts. And the whole week that I was suspended, I was getting messages from a lot of people that I went to school with and people that I didn't even know from high school. I was getting tagged in stuff on Instagram of people saying how much of a weirdo I am. Well, a few days into my suspension, Layla and Ivy talked my boyfriend into breaking up with me. They faked text messages between each other and made it look like I was talking to another guy. And then they faked another conversation between Layla and I. Like for part 4. Part 4 about how my best friend made my entire school hate me. So like I said, Layla and Ivy talked my boyfriend into breaking up with me the week that I was suspended. They showed him fake text messages between me and some guy that doesn't even exist. And then they also faked a conversation between Layla and I, and it's me saying, OMG, this guy's so hot, I'm gonna leave my boyfriend for him. And I was getting called a cheater, and when I went back to school the next week on Monday, it was terrible. People would whisper and laugh at me when I was walking in the hallway. I would be in the bathroom and there would be girls talking about how weird and disgusting I was loud enough so I could hear them. Every lunch table that I sat at, Layla and Ivy would sit at the other end with all their friends and just talk about me the entire time. Well, after this situation, I finally decided that I was going to do online school for the next 2 months and then hopefully have a fresh start in high school. All the girls and I were changing in the locker room and we went to gym class. Ivy asked if she could go to the bathroom, which of course was in the locker room. After gym class, I get changed in my clothes. And all the girls start laughing at me when my teacher says, there's a hole in the back of your pants. And yes, I did try telling my teachers about this stuff that was going on. Because we all should know by now, schools are notorious for not doing shit to help students that are being bullied. Part 2 about how my best friend was a snake. So like I said, I had to move away for 3 months because of my dad, and Jake and I, we stopped talking about 2 weeks after I had left. And then I get a text from my friend saying, hey, you know Kaylie and that guy that you were talking to, Jake? Obviously, I say yes. And then she goes, oh, well, they're talking about getting together. And I was livid. I'm like, dude, I've literally been gone for like less than a month and you're already trying to get with the guy that I liked. What the actual you know what? So I bawled my eyes out for like 2 hours straight. And then I decide that I'm going to confront her. And she literally says to me, like, she has the audacity to say that she's been in love with him for so long, even before I had told her about him. Which is a lie, because as I told you guys earlier, she didn't know this man. Well, anyways, Jake ended up friend-zoning her, and she didn't even really apologize to me. She said sorry, but like, she didn't acknowledge the importance of the situation and how it made me feel. She just thought that saying sorry would make it all better. Story time about how my boyfriend was seeing another girl behind my back. So a little background information, I was living with my dad and I had just started a new school and I became really good friends with this group of kids. And in our friend group, there was this boy who we're gonna call Alex. And him and I hit it off like right away. We had been talking for 2 months. And by the way, during this whole time, his friends were telling me how much he loved me and how much he wanted to be with me. So eventually him and I started dating. And of course, like any other tragic love story, I had to move far away because I had to go live with my mom, blah, 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 blah. But since I would visit my dad for the holidays, him and I would still be able to see each other sometimes, which is pretty good for a long distance relationship, especially when you're in school. So I told him about how I had to move. And he was really sad, but he said that I can trust him. Red flag number 1, because why would you say that in the first place? There should be no reason on why I have to, quote, trust you to be loyal when I'm away. Like for part 2. Part 2 about how my boyfriend was seeing another girl behind my back. So like I said, I told him that we were going to have to do long distance and he was sad, but then he said that he could trust me. And like I said before, why the hell would I have to trust you? Because you should just be loyal in general, duh. So I'm like, hey, I want to spend time with you before I leave. Can we hang out? And he was like, oh, sorry, I have plans, but we can hang out later tonight. So I was like, okay, whatever. And a few hours go by. I never get a text from him or a call, nothing. So I text him and he's like, sorry, I forgot. So I'm really sad right now, but I forgave him. Quick note here, ladies, if he wanted to, he would have canceled his plans if he really wanted to see you. Anyway, so I move and fast forward 2 to 3 weeks and Alex and I literally have only been texting, no calls, nothing like that. So I'm talking to one of his friends and one of his friends tells me that he's been talking to this other girl and he's been telling everybody that he's been wanting to break up with me for weeks because he wants to date her instead, like for part 3. Part 3 about how my boyfriend was seeing another girl behind my back. So like I said, I was talking to his friend and his friend said that he's been talking to this girl for 2 to 3 weeks about the time that I've been gone. And he's been telling everybody about how he wants to break up with me for her. So of course I'm sad and crying and I confront him and he says, oh, she's just a friend, blah, blah, blah. So I press the issue and then he tells me that he lost feelings for me weeks ago. And that the reason why he didn't tell me was because he didn't want to hurt my feelings. Yet he led me on for 2 to 3 weeks. Like, how does that work, Alex? How? Anyway, so I blocked him because there's no way in hell that I'm going to keep talking to a guy that was making fun of me with his friends and telling everybody around him that he wanted to break up with me. That's embarrassing. Story time about how I came out to my homophobic parents. So a little background information, I was 14 or 15 and I was a freshman in high school. And all throughout middle school, I had been questioning my sexuality because I didn't really know what I was into, as do most kids my age. Well, due to this, I was bullied in school because people would always ask me, oh, do you like boys or girls? And when I would say that I don't know, they would call me slurs. So anytime that I got into a relationship, I would keep it a secret, and the only person that knew was my best friend. But the summer before my freshman year, I got together with my current boyfriend, and we're going to call him Andrew. Andrew and I met through Snapchat through a mutual friend. We started FaceTiming all the time and we found out that we lived in the same area, so we started hanging out all the time as well. Well, eventually him and I started dating, and after about 3 or 4 weeks, we took our relationship a little bit further, and his parents knew that he was gay and that we were in a relationship. But my parents, on the other hand, did not know, like for part 2. Part 2 about how I came out to my very homophobic parents. So like I said before, my boyfriend and I had decided to take our relationship a step further, and his parents knew that he was gay and that him and I were in a relationship. But my parents, on the other hand, did not know. They just thought that him and I were best friends that hung out every single day. But yeah, my parents think that doing the nasty before marriage is a sin, being gay is a sin. Pretty much doing anything is a sin. So the one day I was in my room watching RuPaul's Drag Race. By the way, I don't know if I pronounced that right. And then my mom walks in and she says, I don't want you watching these men in wigs and heels, acting like females, blah, blah, blah. That's a sin. Like, Mom, go get a fucking life. Thanks. And then she says, if I find out you're a part of this, you're going to need God and Jesus to protect you from me. So my boyfriend and I are in complete shock. Well, then I finally decided that I was going to grow some balls and tell my mom that I was a part of that community. Life for part 3. Part 3 about how I came out to my super homophobic parents. So, like I said, my mom was like, if you're a part of this community, you're gonna need God and Jesus to protect you from me. And I was really upset. I started crying, and my boyfriend, he's like comforting me. I finally decided to grow some balls and tell her that I was, in fact, a part of the community. Well, I ended up getting my ass beat. They also told me that they were going to take me to a priest to get an exorcism. So I basically moved out of my parents' house and I moved into my uncle's house, who's a part of the LGBTQ community. And he's in full support of my boyfriend and I's relationship. I blocked both of my parents and I haven't talked to them ever since I moved out. Well, that's a lie. The only time that I did talk to them was to wish them a happy Mother's Day and happy Father's Day. But other than that, I decided that I want to be happy, and to be happy, I had to keep them out of my life. Storytime about how I got away with sleeping with my best friend's brother without her knowing. So a little background information, I was 15 and in 10th grade, and we're going to call my best friend's brother Jake. Now, I've always felt like I had a connection with Jake, but I didn't know what kind of connection, so I just ignored it. But I was super close with their mom, and I kind of thought of her as my own. And I would always be over their house because my parents were always fighting, so I knew exactly where they hid their spare key. Anyways, so this night my parents have been fighting and I was texting with Jake. And Jake was like, oh, well, you should just come over and we'll hang out. And I said no because I didn't want to upset my best friend. But him and I were still texting throughout the night and I finally decided to go over their house. I ended up falling asleep in my best friend's room, and then fast forward, I wake up at 3 a.m. So I go to the bathroom, and what are the chances her brother is in there? As he walks out, I walk in, and somehow we both ended up in the bathroom together, and we did the nasty. After that, I went back to bed, and nobody ever found out. Storytime about how this girl pretended to be my best friend just to go on vacation with me. So a little background information, I was 14 and a freshman in high school, and we're going to call this girl Sophia. Sophia and I met whenever we were in 6th grade, and we were inseparable. And shortly after her and I had became best friends, my mom thought that it would be nice for us to go on vacation to Hawaii in 2 years. She also said that my brother and I would be able to bring one friend each. So I asked Sophia if she wanted to come to Hawaii in 2 years, and of course she said yes. Keep in mind, I was popular, Sophia was kind of lame, and I'm not even saying that just to be mean, but it's true. So over the next 2 years, her and I are hanging out every day, sneaking out together because we also live like 2 minutes away from each other. And my brother decided that he was going to bring his friend Noah. And I had a crush on Noah, and Sophia knew this, but she would always flirt with him in front of me. I really should have saw this as a red flag, but you know, we love to ignore those. And then out of nowhere, Sophia starts dressing like me and starts getting more popular in school. Like for part 2. Part 2 about how this girl pretended to be my best friend just to go on vacation with me. So like I said, she had been flirting with this guy that she knew that I liked, and then she starts dressing like me and getting more popular, which I didn't really care because I was still her best friend. Mainly because she didn't really have any other friends. So fast forward, vacation comes around and we all go to Hawaii. We had the best time ever. And then we come home and I barely hear from her. Like, I was putting in all the effort, texting her every day, and her responses were dry as fuck. And then she had this boyfriend named Brendan, which I guess that could have been the reason why she wasn't talking to me as much. Because, you know, you get into a relationship and all of your focus goes towards that, especially at this age. But the only reason why she started dating him was because he was popular. So they break up and she stopped talking to me altogether. She even blocked me on Instagram. So I asked her what happened and she said that I was a controlling bitch and she didn't want to be friends with me, which doesn't even make any sense because I've never been controlling to her. And then she starts texting me like everything was okay, and this went on for a little bit. But after a few months, I just stopped talking to her, but I definitely felt used. Storytime about how one of my best friends started blackmailing me. So a little background information, I was 16 years old and a junior in high school. And my parents are friends with this other married couple who has a son that is around my age. He's 17, about to be 18, and we're going to call him Derek. Well, him and I somehow ended up getting into the same friend group, and he got my number, and him and I started texting a lot. So fast forward, my birthday comes around, and I end up having a party. And some of my cousins were around my age as well, so they were there, and my whole friend group was there, including Derek, of course. Well, surprise, surprise, there were booze and marijuana there, so I ended up getting kind of messed up. And then, as you can guess, Derek and I did the nasty. And surprise again, he had took some pictures and videos of me drinking and stuff. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, he sent me a message that literally said for me to send him nude pictures and do stuff for him physically, or else he was going to send these pictures to my parents. Like for part 2. Part 2 about how one of my best friends was blackmailing me. So like I said, he took some pictures and videos of me doing some stuff at my party, and then all of a sudden I get a message out of nowhere saying that I need to send him nude photos and do stuff for him physically, or else he was going to send these pictures to my parents, and the whole school literally blackmailed me. Now, of course, I didn't want my parents to find any of this crap out, so it became a regular thing between him and I, where I would send him pictures and then do stuff for him, and this went on for a while. Fast forward, thankfully, I'm about to graduate, and he doesn't blackmail me anymore since both of us don't want a serious relationship. I don't really know how that makes sense, but yeah. Storytime about why my aunt put me back into foster care. Yes, she put me back into foster care. So a little background information, I was 15 years old and a sophomore in high school. But whenever I was 12 years old, I was in a very abusive household. And I had 2 younger sisters. One was 11 and the other one was 9. Fast forward, all of us were put into foster care. I got placed into many shelters / group homes because of my behavioral issues. While I was going through all of this, my sisters were both in study homes, so that kind of sucked. I mean, I was happy for them, but at the same time, I was going through hell. But eventually, my grandma and my dad passed away, so my aunt decided that she wanted my sisters and I. So she got her foster license, and the days leading up to whenever we were supposed to move in with her were absolute garbage. There was this one girl who was 19 years old. Her and I did not get along, and I was supposed to leave that Wednesday, but I didn't want to wait, so I decided that I was going to get myself kicked out in hopes that I would be able to move in with my aunt sooner. Like for part 2. Part 2 about why my aunt put me back into foster care. So like I said, I found a way that I was going to get kicked out, and it was by fighting this girl. And yes, I won. But fast forward, eventually my sisters and I move in with my aunt. And if you guys ever heard the phrase honeymoon, you probably think of a relationship, right? Wrong. I was actually shocked about how fast everything went downhill whenever we got there. Like eventually my cousins just started being mean to me for no reason, while they favored my sisters. And when I say cousins, you guys are probably thinking they're around my age. No, they were actually in their 20s. Hell, one was even close to 30. Like, these were grown-ass adults beating on a 15-year-old. So eventually, my cousins, my aunt, and I are fighting almost every single day. And the one day, my sister and I got into an argument that eventually turned into us fighting. And my cousins love to jump in every fight that my sister and I have. Well, they jumped in this fight, and instead of helping break it up, they actually made it worse. The one was holding my leg down, and eventually I got it up and I kicked her in the face. And my aunt thought that it was my fault, so she sent me to Storytime about how my best friend got my house raided. So a little background information, I was 16 and in 11th grade, and we're gonna call my best friend Jenna. Jenna and I have been on and off friends since elementary school. Now, the reason why we were on and off friends was because Jenna was the type of person who ended up in drama all the time. And coincidentally, anytime that I would stop being her friend, I would be in no drama. Now, there have been multiple times where I've tried to break off our friendship for good, but Jenna, of course, was the type of girl who would threaten to unalive herself whenever things didn't go her way. And I low-key have a savior complex. Also, I literally lived right across the street from her. So it was very hard to cut this friendship off. Well, anyways, fast forward, so her and I are friends, which also wasn't good because she was a very bad influence on me. For example, I didn't have a driver's license, but I had a car. So of course I would go pick her up and her and I would fuck shit up together, aka do bad things. Well, the one night I let her drive and she ended up going to my ex-boyfriend's house like for Part 3 about how my best friend got my house raided. So like I said, she posted stuff online about my mental health, and then her and I, we ended up fighting at school, and her mom decided to press charges, but then I ended up showing the cops everything that she had said to me online and all the bullying that she was doing, and how she would literally blackmail me into being friends with her. And this made Jenna and Jenna's mom super unhappy, so they ended up filing a false report about me to the police, saying that I have illegal stuff in my house, and I do this, and I do that, and I plan on unaliving my mom. Like, what the fuck? So in the middle of the night, my whole family and I are woken up by this loud banging on our front door. So my mom, hurry up, go open the door, and they're saying that they have a warrant, and come to find out, the only thing that they could find were a bunch of empty vapes, which my mom was not happy about. And yeah, my mom and I's relationship is super rocky sometimes, but I would never try to unalive her. Storytime, is blood really thicker than water? Metaphorically speaking, of course. So a little background information, I was 16 years old and I was in 10th grade, and I had just started dating this guy that my friends introduced me to. He was extremely attractive, really smart, and really kind. Literally had all the traits a girl could want in a boyfriend. So him and I are talking for a while, and then we start dating, and we were amazing together. And my sister had just came back home from teaching in Thailand. Surprisingly, her and I got super close because we always used to fight with each other. And now we were inseparable. The only issue was she was 25 years old acting like a child. She always wanted to be at my boyfriend's house with him and his family. Weird, I know. Anyway, so she was always over there with them, and I thought that maybe she was just lonely. Wrong, of course. Now, of course, like any other relationship, mine wasn't perfect, but my boyfriend and I started having more problems than usual when my sister showed up. He was being super weird, and all the signs pointed to him cheating on me. Like for part 2. Part 2, is blood thicker than water? Metaphorically speaking, of course. So like I said, my sister started spending more time at my boyfriend's house. I thought that she was lonely, but then my boyfriend started acting weird and all the signs pointing to him cheating on me. But I ignored it because I thought that him and I were in love like in the movies. And also, if I broke up with him, it would be like breaking up with his family because I loved them like my own. Fast forward, his sister ends up getting married and my sister and I were invited to the wedding. Fast forward, everybody gets drunk. We end up spending the night at his cousin's house. And something was off with my boyfriend. He wasn't really talking to me. He wouldn't touch me. He pretty much acted like he was done with me. Well, then there's my sister who was flirting and touching him like it was normal. Fast forward a month, I asked my sister if anything happened between them. And she goes, I think we slept together. So I confronted him about it. And he just laughs and he's like, it wasn't that serious. So I end up breaking up with him and then I start finding unhealthy ways to cope, aka drinking. And eventually I got so lonely to the point where I forgave my sister. And then I started seeing this other guy. And he was amazing, like for part 3. Part 3, is blood thicker than water? Metaphorically speaking, of course. So like I said, I forgave my sister and then I got a new guy. He was amazing. And then my sister started begging to hang out with us. Now, of course, you would have thought that I learned from the first time, but I did not. I just completely ignored the signs that God gave me that she was a bad person. Okay, I guess not a bad person. She just didn't give a fuck about my feelings. Well, the one weekend his parents went away and they needed him to house sit, so he invited me over to house sit with him. And then guess who tags along? My sister. I mean, I guess I could have told her that she couldn't come, but at the same time, I was trying to be a forgiving person, okay? And I thought that she wouldn't do this shit to me again. Well, I was wrong because on the last night of house sitting, we all decided that we were gonna get drunk. And my sister made sure that I got more effed up than everybody else. I ended up actually getting alcohol poisoning and I almost died. But she didn't care. She was too focused on sleeping with the new guy. The worst part of this is they started dating and my mom was on her side. It's been 3 years and I'm still trying to forgive her and my Storytime about how my best friend was a snake. So a little background information, I was 15 and in 9th grade. And I've been best friends with this girl who we're going to call Kaylie since 5th grade. Well, fast forward to 8th grade, there was this guy in my class that I really liked. And obviously I told Kaylie about it because, like, duh, she is my best friend. And she has never talked to this boy. She never even knew who he was before I had told her about him. And by the way, we're going to call him Jake. Well, eventually him and I started talking and she was hyping us up. Like, she really wanted us to be together so bad. And I was really feeling the love and support. Well, not long after that, I had to move to another town for like 3 months because of my dad. So Jake and I, we stopped talking after me being gone for like 2 weeks. And of course, not long after that, one of my friends from home texted me. And she's like, hey, you know Kaylie and that guy that you were talking to, right? AKA Jake. Obviously, I say yes. Like for part 2.